Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Soil mixes aren't just dirt. There's a lot of science behind them. Today, we're going to make a mix and talk about what each ingredient does. Also, ground covers can help fill in the ornamental garden. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Kyle McLane. Kyle is a horticulturalist at the Dixon Gallery Gardens. Thanks for being with us, Kyle.
Great to be here.
Good. So this is going to be Soils 101, right? So we want to talk about mixing soils for a raised bed. So let's talk about the different components.
Components. Right. So first of all, you want 50% of the soil in that bed to be a clay-based soil. It could be, it depends, and you probably want to get a soil test to see what the pH and all that to start off. But this is screen soil, which is great to work with. If you are getting your soil ready and it's wet, you're going to compact it, so do not till it or break it up. If it's wet, if you squeeze it together and it stays together and see how that breaks back up, then it's fine to till it and work it. Initially, if depending on the size of your raised bed, but I would break up that ground on the bottom of the bed and then start amending. And if you can you could take the soil out and amend it and put it back if you're not going to buy some screen soil, if you're just going to use your existing soil. Okay. But it would be good to get something that's screened like this.
So why does it have to be screened?
Just makes it easier to mix, and it's finer and broken up instead of being a big clods. And this is straight clay soil that's as hard as a rock, but it not conducive for growing plants, that's for sure. Okay. Coarse red sand. Right. And here in Memphis in the Mid-South, we have access to this really coarse sand.
That's good.
Larger granules helps to loosen the soil up. It has bits of pea gravel, and it will help to loosen that clay-based soil up.
So the sand is important for loosening up the soil?
It is. Got it. Okay. It helps with structure. Okay. This happens to be our organic material, our compost, but this is Cottonburg compost, which is very rich, so you don't need as much, but you can use poultry manure, black cow manure, leaf compost. Leaf compost is not as high in nutrients, but it does have the organic matter.
So why do we need to add that?
You're adding that because you look at soil as biological, physical, and chemical. This is adding microbes, fungi, bacteria to your soil, and that's breaking down things in the soil so that makes it available to the plant. Got it. So it's a living ecosystem in your soil. Okay. And then for physical, you're adding sand and this bark. This is screen pine bark, which is, we have access here again in the Mid-South too. And that's when they take the bark off the pine trees. This is what's been screened off. It's very fine.
So why do we need the bark in the
mix? To add to the soil to help loosen the soil. Okay. And it adds organic matter. You could use pine bark mulch. I would not use some of the hardwoods and stuff because most of that is not bark. It's wood fiber. And wood fiber to break down, the microbes are going to take nitrogen out of the soil to break it down, and it takes longer. Right. You could do it at home and have your sticks and limbs and have them all and let them compost for probably a year or so, and then you could use that as part of, and that'll help loosen the soil as well. And then doing having your soil tested, you're looking at pH, and that's your chemical part. So you got your physical, chemical, and then your organic part. And then you're going to mix these together. All right. So if you're doing it in a raised bed, you could dig out some of your existing soil and amend it, or you could layer it. It's just harder to do in a raised bed. If you can do it outside of it and put it back in, it's just easier to do. Okay.
So you like to mix one component of it at a time?
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just doing that, but you could layer, take your soil, put your sand, then put your compost, and then put your bark on it. This is just easier to, but same thing, you're mixing it up. And the tiller, initially you could use a tiller to mix it up, but after that, That does cause compaction when you till, so if you can avoid that.
So just initially you would do that?
Do that. It's just easier to mix it up that way. Then after that, every year, once you get your really good mix, which we're getting here, you can add an inch or two of some type of compost, cow manure, leaf compost every year, and then mix, and that will help add nutrients back in and help with the biological in it.
Okay, so you mentioned compost a couple of times. So what is compost? And let's talk a little bit about that.
Compost is some type of plant material that's been broken down. It could be leaves, stems, even roots of stuff can be used in that. And if you have a compost bin, you can put that in there. You know, you take kitchen scraps. Yeah. No meats or anything like that. That's right. You can use some coffee grounds. You can use eggshells and things like that. Add to it. You just have to be careful that coffee grounds can be a little acidic. Yeah. Always get a soil test to see where you're at, because you never know. It might be.
I like the fact you keep mentioning that soil test. We talk about that all the time. That is good. So let me feel a little bit of that as you're mixing it, right?
See how loose that is? So you're getting pore space in between that screen soil that we had, or just your regular soil. Your soil is a mixture of clay, sand, and silt. Yeah. It could be more of the other. Here in the Mid-South, it's a lot more clay. It's very nutritious.
But we shouldn't curse the clay, right?
That's
right. We actually need some clay.
It's highly nutritious. It's just not because of the different the charge in the clay. It may not be the nutrient accessible to the plant. Right. But when you add the organics and some of the other, it makes it accessible to the plant.
Oh, that is good. So you mentioned pore space. So what is pore space and why is it
pore
important?
Space is the spaces between the particles of your soil. Okay. So it allows water, allows air, allows those roots to go down into that and get deep and get the nutrients they need. Right. And just if you don't have that pore space, if it's compacted, that's why you don't want to compact your soil. Walk on it as little as possible. Water will not infiltrate down; it'll just run over off of it. And so you want it to go down in there, and that just allows those roots to move down in there. And then having that clay-based soil gives it structure so the roots can hold. If you just had straight organic or sand, it's not going to be as strong structure for it.
Right, and I usually tell people this: if I was a plant root, right, I want to hang out in pore space. Because again, that's where your water, that's where your air, your nutrients are going to be. So it just makes sense to me.
And your microbes live in that pore space. Yeah. So
as we're talking about pore space, what are some other additives that you can add to the soil to create that pore space?
So worm castings. So you can buy that now. I've got it in bulk. If you get it fresh, it'll have a lot of biological activity in it. Okay. Yeah. But if it's been aged, it is still great biological, and it's the little sticky that if you pick up an earthworm, it's kind of sticky. That helps hold structure together in your soil and nutrients. So that's good to have. Of course, leaf compost. See how coarse that is? That really adds. That's adding organics plus. All that will add and loosen it up. Soil conditioner, which we did earlier, which is just screen pine bark. Again, try to stay away from wood products unless it's composted. Like these wood chips, you would want that to be broken down and breaking down, almost becoming soil before you use it. You don't want it fresh like this because the microbes will take the nitrogen and deplete it out of your soil, and your plants will not grow well.
You can really tell the difference.
You can.
Okay. How about that?
And then a product that we used at the Dixon, if you want really, really good drainage, and for example, rosemary or lavender need really good. This is a clay-based material that's been heated like 3,000 degrees. Wow. It's pretty much inert. The pH is pretty much neutral. It does not break down. All the baseball fields and softball fields probably across America have this on the infield and on the pitcher's mound and the catchers. Really? So when you have a big rain, it allows it to drain.
I got you.
It will hold a little bit of moisture, but not much, but it just loosens the soil up. So when we planted that rosemary, we did our regular amended soil, and then we added almost half and half, and we had perfect drainage, and that rosemary did really well. We have so much rain in the winter here. The spring, it really helped with that.
Well, Kyle, we appreciate this, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's good soil mix. Let's look at that again.
I know.
Isn't that nice?
It is.
Yeah, we wish people could feel that, you know what I mean? Last growing season in this area, we put down a black plastic. After we took off the black plastic in the fall, we saw that there were no winter weeds. So we're thinking that soil solarization actually happened here. So again, putting down that black plastic, absorbing that heat, we're thinking that heat killed a lot of the winter weeds. In this section again, you see no winter weeds. When you look in the other section that didn't have the black plastic, I see an assortment of winter weeds. So soil solarization works. Hi, Ms. Carroll. Here's a question we get a lot at the Extension office, and Rudy probably gets this question as well. Ground covers. What kind of ground covers do I need to put in this condition or that condition? So you're about to tell us, right, all about the ground covers.
Yes, and you know, we're also developing those lists now to be available online. Our website, uthort.com. Okay. We're just finalizing statewide lists to be posted soon, so stay tuned there. Okay. But I've over the years, of course, compiled my own personal list for the ones that I have used here in West Tennessee successfully, and the ones that I absolutely warn people not to plant. So it is about evaluating the site, you know, sunshade as it is with anything, wet or dry, and then choosing the appropriate ground cover. But another thing I really want to talk about is a lot of times people do just want it to cover ground in a place where it's difficult to mow, or where grass won't prosper. Right. But there's also just beautiful design reasons to use it. For example, recently on a hydrangea tour, which of course usually is in shade gardens, beautiful bright golden sweet flag sweeps of it that pulls you around the paths in the garden. Because I do like in shade gardens to look for those golden or variegated plants. Dark foliage plants will often just disappear in the shade against the mulch. And also they provide great contrast. Blue, I love blue plants, I love purple plants, but they don't show up unless you provide a pop of contrast sometimes behind it or a golden understory. Those beautiful eucharas, you know, that have the dark foliage, but an understory of the dwarf golden sweet flag really makes them pop instead of against the mulch. So I also want to warn people, they think they want a fast one.
Yes, they do.
But they don't.
They don't.
They soon will find out that fast ones don't know when to stop.
Oh, that's the problem.
They're like, oh, okay, so stop here. Well, nope. I'm a living thing, and I want to cover some ground, and I want to succeed. So English ivy is famous for being horribly invasive. It'll get up into your trees and in the neighbor's trees and out into the woodland and just keep going. And there's plenty of examples if you drive around Memphis.
Plenty.
To see. It will eventually shade out the canopy. It's not good for the tree. It's not parasitic. It just shades out the ability of the tree to photosynthesize. Sorry, y'all. But it also will create that danger for that tree to be more subject to wind throw. It catches the wind surface.
Pulls it over.
I was going to take a picture of a weeping willow covered with English ivy, and they were coming out like little pigtails.
Oh my goodness.
And before I got back to take the picture, the wind got it. Just this last year. So I like to look for the ground covers that will stay in discrete clumps. They may get bigger every year and more full and filled in. And it's going to cost more on the front end if you want a solid ground cover because you're going to have to plug more in. Right. But the lack of maintenance, everybody tells me, I've never had anybody tell me they want high maintenance. So if they want low maintenance, spend a little bit more money, you know, and get these slower spreading ones that stay in discrete clumps. And there's lots of them out there now. There are sedges, and a lot of times we think of our weedy sedges as being problems and running, but there are many well-behaved sedges that do stay in discrete clumps. The sweet flags, again, are ones that slowly spread and come in a variety of colors. Also, I like to find those that will give me a season of bloom. Ajuga has a beautiful little bloom.
I was going to say that. I like ajuga.
In the spring. And the moss phlox, the phlox subulata, a lot of people like to call thrift. That's a great little ground cover.
Periwinkle.
Periwinkle will too as well. Sometimes the vinca, the periwinkle, the large one, gets a little bit aggressive. And another thing I wanted to mention about those really aggressive ones. You think you're just going to put it there and you have no more maintenance to do, but weeds come up in them.
Yes, they do. Yeah, speaking of weeds, right?
Yes, I have gone out and photographed in the vinca right behind the experiment station all the things that birds like to eat. Virginia creeper, poison ivy, privet, hackberry, the native black cherry, the wild cherry. That's what happens. And nothing you can spray there to kill it that won't absolutely kill the ground cover as well.
Good point,
So that's an issue. I want people to know there's two kinds of monkey grass.
Yes, please explain that one. Yes, please.
There are different species. Larapi muscari stays put.
Stays put.
It's a big, nice clump, gets bigger, but Larapi spicata will run, and it'll run into your lawn and places you may not want it. So I like to use it though in places that it's contained. If it's contained, completely surrounded by concrete, by sidewalk,
It'll fill in pretty quick.
it fills in beautifully, and it looks like a river. It just blows. It's got a nice texture to it. But if you need slow spreading, now Mondo will do that too, by the way. It's very similar to Larapi spicata. But the little dwarf Mondos don't spread fast.
I like those.
Yes, they're cute as they can be.
Yeah.
They stay a little tiny height.
Yeah, they're really tiny.
And there's even a black Mondo.
Yes, I've seen that one. That's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and it is the slowest thing you will ever.
You're right. You're right. It's very
So I always tell people, go ahead
tedious.
and buy a lot, because I love how I've seen people use it to make another plant pop, a variegated plant, for example, with that black background. But buy enough to make an impact, because it's not going to spread quickly. You're going to be waiting for years for the effect that you hoped for. Also, some of the pretty ones, there's a golden monkey grass called PD ingot. There's a beautiful silvery sunproof is a common one, but it's a gorgeous big variegated plant. And I've seen friends use that as a perennial. Just put it in next to something that complements.
Oh, nice. Wow.
And just a little explosion of gold or silvery foliage. My friend Jimmy Williams up in Paris has a great eye for using those, or even in containers. I use them that way. Some of the ground covers, in fact, make great container additions. If you're thinking about the spillers again, you know, for evergreen, for winter interest, I often leave them in containers for years and just add the summer annuals and then the winter things that I wanted to for more interest. I want to talk about sedums too.
All right, let's go.
Sedums.
I read
I like sedums.
sometimes just this blanket statement. People will say, well, sedums make a great ground cover and they take sun and they don't need much water.
Right.
Which one? There are dozens of species and hundreds of cultivars. And they don't all make good ground covers. And some of them, you know, we think of them as really loving heat. But some aren't so tolerant of our heat and our humidity. So Angelina's hard to beat. That beautiful gold, and it gets a burgundy color in the winter. It stays, and these will all tolerate a little bit of shade as well. Chinese sedum, one of my very favorites, sometimes called coral reef in the trade now. It gets a little bit of a ruddy color in the winter time. It stays little tight rosettes. And I've seen it do surprisingly well in shade. And if I had to pick a third, there's one that Paul Little called me. He said, nobody comes in here and asks for that by name because it doesn't have a common name. It's Phedemus tachysamense, also classified as sedum tachysamense. He said, is it okay? People come in and say, could I please buy some of Carol's favorite sedum? Can I call it Carol's favorite? And I said, I'd be honored.
Oh, all right.
Here in Memphis, it has a label on it now.
Trade name. There we
Carol's
go.
favorite. Isn't that thrilling?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So that's a beautiful, beautiful sedum. A little bit taller, but again, stays nice and tight, and the texture is fabulous. I use it in containers. I use it in the ground. And the great thing about sedum, you can just pick up a piece and hand it to a friend.
Right.
You can accidentally leave it in your pocket for a few days.
Oh, gosh.
And it'll last.
It'll still root.
Yeah.
I often show people how easy it is to spread. For example, Angelina, I'll pull a clump up and go over and throw it on the ground. And then I come back in a few weeks and it'll be a nice patch.
How about that?
there. The surprising thing, because they are so drought tolerant, because Angelina sedum roots are just about that
Very
big.
shallow, yeah.
They get enough moisture from the night air. They don't really require deep rooted. Though some of the clump forming sedums do have deeper roots, so I'm not going to tell you they're all that way, but that's one of the reasons that I like them. If they do get aggressive, and they can get into areas where I don't want them, they're easily removed. You can do it with a rake.
Okay, just rake it up. Right. The night air is how I guess it's.
I know, isn't that cool? Oh, remember that if you do get Bermuda grass in your monkey grass or mondo grass, you can use,
It's gonna happen.
And I have stopped and told people, I've seen them all sitting there trying to weed Bermuda grass out of the monkey grass. So, you know, there's a herbicide for that.
Yes, there is.
Because monkey grass is not a grass. Mondo grass is not a grass. They're an entirely different family, so you can spray and kill those grassy weeds and those ground covers and not harm your monkey grass or mondo grass.
Or mondo grass.
Mondo.
Good stuff. All right. So we appreciate that good information about
One more.
Yeah. Oh,
Creeping raspberry.
Creeping raspberry, real quick.
Do you love creeping raspberry?
Yes.
That's a great
They
ground cover
are
for sun
unique,
or
yes.
shade. The texture, they'll cascade, and in full sun they fruit.
They full sun.
Little
sun.
yellow raspberries
Yeah.
that are
Really?
edible. No thorns on them either. They're just
No.
kind of stiff, but not.
Yeah,
prickly.
and
They're
they're
edible.
edible.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they're nice, creeping
I didn't
low.
know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we need to use that one more.
Okay. But there you have it, y'all. From Miss Kara Reese. They're edible. Thank you. That was really good with ground covers.
Good.
Thank you much. Appreciate that.
Now is not the ideal time of the year to prune peaches. Late winter is the time to prune peaches, but anytime you see dead wood is a good time to remove that dead wood. Probably the main reason that we're removing dead wood is because there may be disease organisms present that you don't want to spread to that tree. So I've got a limb here that's dead, that's several of them, and I'm going to go up to the healthy tissue. See, there's no leaves on there at all. I'm going to drop them down there, and I'm going to pick them up and get them out of here after I prune them off. Because if you leave them under the tree, they could still, fungal spores and things like that can still come from them. And remember, there may be disease organisms present here, so that's why we want to get rid of them. Burn them if you can, but get them out of the orchard.
All right, Kyle, here's our Q&A segment. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, these are some good questions we have here. Here's our first viewer email. This one's interesting. Are the seeds from our tree peony viable? Will they remain true to the parent plant? And this is Dunny from Springfield, Missouri.
So I actually have a Japanese tree peony in my,
good.
bed,
Okay.
A red flowering one. Some of those are grafted, and most are not gonna, some are not. Depending on what it is, and they've been hybridized and stuff, you're probably not gonna get back true plant from the seed.
Okay.
If they go on to the American Peony Society, they explain that very thoroughly. But you know, that inter-specific hybrid, the Ito, those are sterile. They're not going to have any seeds on them. And it takes a while to get some, but you can collect on certain ones and have viable seeds, but it may not be the parent one that you want. But you know, they took a woody part and kind of on some of those and grafted it onto a herbaceous.
Oh, okay.
So if you have that growth coming up from the herbaceous, you want to cut that off. You want it into that main plant, but it's a beautiful.
Yeah.
It's one of my wife's favorite plants.
How about that? Yeah, you got to keep that one living, man. Yeah, you definitely got to do that. But yeah, so that was interesting to me. I actually had to do some research about that. Yeah, I didn't know that for sure. Because I did read that, of course, a lot of the tree peonies are cross-pollinated. Yeah, are wind-pollinated. Yeah, so that actually makes sense what you said. Okay. So thank you for that question, Donnie. Yeah, I learned something from that too as well. So thank you much. Here's our next viewer email. What can I do to get my Annabelle hydrangea to not just flop on the ground? And this is Terry from Chester, Virginia. He says he cut it to the ground to stop some blight. It's coming back, but it's not bushy.
So if you don't cut it all the way to the ground, you leave it like 18 to 24 inches or so, and then let that new growth come up, it'll have stronger stems. You cut to the ground, it's all new, so you'll have a stronger. And then you can use, you know, for peonies, they want to flop. You can use those peony hoops, or even a tomato cage. You'd have to kind of adjust it to hold it up. You could take bamboo and put it around it, and take twine to hold it up as well. But it is tough to do. I mean, when they get wet, especially, they want to flop down. But you're just going to have to support those stems some way to keep it from flopping.
Okay. But again, you would not, you know, cut it all the way back down to the ground.
No, I mean, he did that, and it's not going to hurt it. But if you leave those stems up a little bit higher, you'll have the stronger starting out, because it'll be an older stem and be stronger. It won't flop as much.
All right. There you have it, Mr. Terry. Appreciate that. Yeah, Annabelles are beautiful.
It is.
Yeah, I like those. All right, here's our next viewer email. How do I save my bird of paradise plant? It is dying, and this is Tanya from Kansas City, Missouri. So what do you think about that?
So first I would look at the roots and see two things that on tropicals, and you know, here it's a house plant. We don't plant it outside, but it's in the summer. Is it getting too much water? Is it getting good drainage? And is it getting enough water? And then you do need to fertilize it. You can use like Miracle Grow or some liquid feed, not super heavy on it, but I would look at that root system. Maybe it needs to be repotted. Make sure it gets bright light,
Yeah, that's
indirect.
what I would think. Yeah.
It can take a lot of light,
Yeah.
and especially get it to flower. And
Yeah.
so I will just look, first thing I look is the drainage, and if it's getting too much water, if it's got mushy roots on it that are starting to rot, or you know, get that off, take that off.
So you can cut those out.
Cut those out, and then put some, maybe get some new soil, good draining soil, potting mix for it, and I think it'll come back around.
I think it would come back around. I would also scout, you know, for spider mites. You know,
Yep, you could do
that can be a tremendous problem, you know, for bird of paradise or scales. You know, so I'll look for those as well. But I think everything you talked about is good. I thought. Yeah, definitely check the watering, you know, for sure. And it is a tropical, right?
It is. And
so it's going to need a lot of sun.
And it likes humidity. If you can set it on, you know, put some gravel in a tray and put some water so it's out of the water, and you can get some of that humidity from that water. And if you could mist it, depending on how big it is, and that would like that as well.
Okay. So there you go, Tanya. We hope that helps you out. Hope you can save that bird of paradise plant. All right. Kyle, fun as always. Thank you much. Learned so much, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Right. Thank you much. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is questions@familyplotgarden.com. And the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about soil amendments or mixes, or if you just want to print out Kyle's soil recipe, go to familyplotgarden.com. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.